What is up, everybody? Hey, y'all, it's Lucas Underwood from the Changing the Industry podcast and L&M Performance here in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. I am joined today by the one, the only Mr. Cecil Bullard. We're going to be talking about car count versus profit. Cecil, how are you today, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic as usual, Lucas.
Very good, very good. So, Cecil, one of the things I'll never forget, I taught a class at a industry event one time. And I had been in another class where the person was talking about do whatever it takes to get them in the door. And they'd been in a shop and they were in their own shop. And the advisor had turned down a car at 4 o'clock in the afternoon that came in for a coupon oil change and wanted to wait. And so she chased the person back out into the parking lot and said, no, we'll get you in. We'll make it work. I'm going to pull a technician off something else. I'm going to put them on this, and fired an advisor over it. And I'd been in that class and I'm talking about that in this training. And that person was sitting in the back of the class and I didn't see him.
Yeah.
And the thing that I said about it was this, is I said, listen, one of the most impactful things that I've ever experienced was being on the other side of an experience like that. As an advisor, as a technician, what it feels like to feel that kind of pressure and why we shouldn't do that to our people. And so I know there's been a massive movement in the industry that's pushing people to say yes to every car that comes in the door. Doesn't matter what it is, just more cars, more cars, more cars, more cars. And I have had a very, very different experience than that. I am someone who has experienced a higher ARO with less stress and less pressure on our people, a better experience for the client. And I have found that that works best for me. And I'm not saying it works best for every organization, but I wanted to dig in with you and talk a little bit about this. Are you a say yes to every car man, or are you a balanced car count and balanced ARO man? Help me understand.
I think there's both, frankly.
Okay.
It has to make common sense. And I think you're really talking about two different things. So first of all, before you fire someone for not doing what you want, does the person really understand what you want? Right. I mean, is that well defined? Did the guy know that no matter what, I have to bring that car in? So at 4 o'clock, your service advisor made a decision. He'd made promises to other customers that they would have their cars. And instead, now you're jumping in the middle of that and you're saying, well, I'm going to fire this guy because he turned down a discount oil change or whatever. Maybe the discount oil change guys would say, well, yeah, but we do discount oil changes because it leads to other sales.
Right.
But so that's one thing, is the person who works at your counter. I was in North Carolina. You saw me last week. I was on the road for 4 days. After one of my meetings, and this happens a lot, one of the kids came up, young guy, looked like he was about 14, but he's probably in his 20s. And he's like, I'm a third generation. My dad runs the shop, but my dad, he's getting in the middle of everything. It's really hard. And I always say, you work for someone, they write you a check. You have to make a decision about what you're willing to put up with or not put up with, right?
For sure.
As an employee, right?
Yep.
And so when you decide that I want to work here and I want to take the check, in a way, you also decide I'm going to follow the rules of the company, whatever those are. Whether Cecil agrees with them or Lucas agrees with them or whatever, none of that really matters. What matters is that the person that's writing you a check is basically saying, this is how I want to do it, right?
Right.
And behind the scenes, we can have all the arguments we want. We can sit down and go, I don't think that's correct. But until the owner changes their mind about how we do this, then you got to do
business runs.
You got to do what the owner wants. And so if that employee got terminated legitimately because he knew better, then I'm fine with that. I think we have a craziness in our industry. I think we've all lost our minds because you look at car count. I mean, that's like the mantra, right? More cars. I'll make money if I have more cars. Well, that's not necessarily true. It's never been true, frankly.
Right.
We have these shops. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, having done seminars in the industry for well over 20 years and worked with thousands of automotive shops, we have these shops that come in, they're doing $2 million a year worth of business and losing money.
Yeah.
And so And we also have shops, frankly, that are doing, 700,000 and losing money. And I'm pretty sure there's shops out there doing 10 million and losing money. Uh,
Yeah.
there's a balance and there's a way to run your business that is successful, right?
Yep. Absolutely. 100%.
So
And look, I'm gonna take a play directly from the Cecil Bullard playbook. Okay. I'm gonna pull
okay,
the play straight out of the playbook because you said something that I think we need to address right here and right now.
we
Okay.
lost our minds in our
Well, I
industry.
mean, you would have had to have had one to have lost it. Okay. You have to have something to lose it. So the industry in that sense, we're in trouble. But this brings up something that's completely off topic. And I'm just going to ask you what you think about it. There's all these technicians who are really upset right now, right? They're very disgruntled. And it's primarily in the dealership space, right? I make these videos and they come out
Yeah.
every single Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. And these
Yeah.
videos come out and all these dealership guys get so upset and so mad because they think that I'm talking about the dealership space. And I keep saying to them, like, you set the terms for what you're willing to accept in that job, in that role as an employee. And if you don't like the job, for God's sakes, leave.
Yeah,
And if everybody
there's
leaves,
so many there. I mean, I think if you got 1,000 shop owners in a room and you said, how many of you need a good technician in your shop? 999 hands would go up, right? And yet we have these techs that are so miserable in their lives, in the shop that they're at, because the owner doesn't pay me, doesn't appreciate me, doesn't whatever, or she doesn't, or whatever. Okay,
why are you
quit.
there?
Go somewhere else. I mean, holy crap. Yeah, I'm with you,
I mean,
man. I am like, and I talk about the level of incompetence you're willing to accept. I
Yeah.
do that with owners because nobody's going to be Cecil, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, in Cecil's head, in my brain, I think I do it right all the time. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
there's a piece of me that knows that's not true, right? But we're all a little
sure.
insane in some ways, and we think that we know how to do things, and we think that our way is the right way. But as an owner, I'm going to work twice as hard as pretty much anybody else.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of our marketing people. I used to print our workbooks, and I used to write our workbooks, and I used to edit our workbooks. And excuse me, I don't do that now. But I was talking to her, and I said, I used to be here at 2 a.m. printing workbooks because I had a class the next day that I needed the workbooks for and putting them together.
100%.
I'm really glad I don't have to do that.
But we got a review the other day at the family business, and it said the owner was in there serving food, and I wanted to reply and say, yeah, because I got to do whatever I got to do.
Because everybody quit, and I'm in trouble, and I'm the only one. Otherwise, I wouldn't be there.
Right, I got to do what I got to do. Right, this is how we're going to survive. And I what is it that old Dutch always says? Like, I'm paying for the blessings of tomorrow with the sacrifices of today. Do whatever it takes.
Well, and so you create the level of incompetence. And I would say from an owner's point or a manager's point, you say, okay, in that position, I'm willing to accept 3% warranty, right? So I've got a tech, I'm willing to accept 35 hours a week as okay, that's like you hit 35, you're still in my good graces. You only have 3% warranty, you're still in my good graces. But also employees have to do the same thing. I mean, you have to decide, what am I willing to put up with? Am I willing to put up with crappy pay? Well, if you do, and you take the check and you keep taking the check,
then
shut up. Right? I mean, stop bitching about it. And we're an interesting industry. Like you said, maybe we never had a mind, but we constantly eat our tails. We constantly bitch and bitch and bitch. And I don't even think we fully understand. So, I'm pretty sure if Aaron Stokes was still alive and we had Aaron on this, Aaron would be saying, yeah, you say yes, and you say yes because of this, this, and this, right? Yeah. Because that's one of their philosophies, was that yes philosophy. And on the same time, I would be saying, yeah, but sometimes you got to say no, because you've already made promises to other customers, because you're pulling a guy off of a $5,000 job that he could finish up,
for a
and you're going to have
$29.95
him
oil
do
change.
an oil change where you're going to lose $35.
Yeah.
And then he's got to come back to the $5,000 job, and he's got to get his head back in the game. So now you've increased the odds of mistakes happening, comebacks, etc. And so I think there's a point where you say to the customer, look, we would love to do that oil change for you. Absolutely. Only I can't do it tonight right now because my techs are all tied up on other jobs. And we've made promises to customers. And I'm pretty sure if you were one of those customers who I made a promise to, you would not want me pulling the tech off of your car to do someone else's service or whatever it is, right? And it's not even about a $29 oil change. If it was a $300 oil change, I still wouldn't pull my guy off of a $5,000 job at 4:00 to do that oil change.
I think it's easy, right? Like, so my vision of leadership is my job is to create a awesome environment for my internal customers, my employees. And currently I'm not in the shop that much. So it is my manager's job to create an amazing experience for them. And then they in turn create an amazing experience. The desired outcome is a safely and properly repaired automobile for our consumer that is safe and reliable for them and their families. Or that's what we're trying to accomplish. And we have the guardrails, which say, here is the metrics of profitability that we expect. And so you guys stay within these guardrails. Here's where you're going. This is the roadmap. This is what we want. You saw the roadmap. I've got it on the whiteboard, right?
Yeah. And you're also not setting yourself up for success here, right? Yeah. I'm bringing a $29 oil change. So I'm working with Big O Tire guys, not the big company, but a guy owns 3 locations. Yeah. And we're doing free tire rotations and free brake inspections. We're doing hundreds of them. You know what we're selling?
Probably nothing.
Right? Because we're so busy doing the tire rotations and brake inspections, we
don't have time to get to the actual work that they could approve.
We forget to estimate the work, and we don't have time to have a conversation with the customer. Yeah. And so I'm literally going, I said, why do you guys do free brake inspections, free tire rotations? He said, so we can look at the car. Well, you forgot.
Doesn't matter if you're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah. So now I'm going to bring this oil change in, and we'll get to that question in just a second. But I just have to make the point. I'm going to bring this guy in at 4:00. It's a waiter, We're going to service the car, and if I have a good technician do a good inspection, we're 35, 45, 50 minutes in. So now we're pushing 5:00. Then we will find stuff on this car that needs to be talked about. Customer may not buy it, but it needs to be talked about. The whole reason I'm doing the cheap oil change is to get the guy in so I can look at the car and try to sell him the things that he really needs, right?
Yeah.
Except now it's close to 5:00. Is that customer going to sit for another 15, 20 minutes while my service advisor estimates the work? And then is he going to sit for another 15 or 20 minutes with my service advisor after that to discuss what he needs so that he can make a good decision?
In this instance, their theory is like just find one thing wrong with the car that will make them leave it, and then do an inspection and provide the inspection later. I didn't feel like that was very kosher.
It's not the way that I would.
No, I don't feel like it's right.
And it's certainly not the way that I would teach. I don't want to have 3 phone calls with you, right? Or 3 meetings. I don't want to find one thing and say, oh my God, your oil is coming out of the whatever timing cover so badly, we've got to do your timing cover, and it's going to cost XYZ. And you go, okay, I've seen the leaks, do it. And then you leave. And then I go, oh, and now we've had time to check the car over. So here's another $5,000 worth of crap. I don't want to have that. I want to have one conversation. I don't want to have 3 or 2, right? I may have 2 because when we get in the middle of stuff, we may find something that are related that we can't see at that point in time with a basic inspection. But I certainly don't want to have 3 conversations. And I think everything is with the client is about how does that client feel about us, right?
Yeah.
And that experience with us. And so by telling him yes, I made him feel good. Okay. So anytime you tell someone, no, I really can't do that. If that's all you say, you're in trouble, right?
No.
Or no. Nobody wants to hear no, right? Oh my gosh, I would love to do that for you right now. But unfortunately, there's just not enough time. And if we did it right now, we wouldn't do you a justice. We wouldn't be able to inspect the car. Wouldn't be able to tell you about what's going on with the car. You would not have the information you need to make intelligent decisions. And my whole job is making sure that you have the information you need to make the right decisions.
Is advising you, being your advocate.
That's what I do, right?
Yeah.
And so this yes mentality and this car count thing of just driving as many cars through. I'm a numbers guy. Everyone in the industry kind of knows, Cecil understands the numbers or thinks he does. And I watch shops drive car count. And as they drive car count, I watch sales go down. I watch average repair orders go down. I watch
employee satisfaction go down.
Yeah, the employees are running around like chickens with their head cut off. There's a lot more inefficiencies that happen in the business. And so if you run a shop and you really pay attention, you'll learn where your sweet spots are, right? Yeah. Where does the shop make the most money? Where does the shop create the most happy clients? Where does the shop create the best average repair order? Those things that matter to me. And then where does the shop create the most profit? Because I have to be profitable here in the short term and frankly in the long term. Otherwise, I have to go work for somebody else, and I'm not employable.
Right. I'm the same way. And I think it's important, right? One of the things that I'm bad for doing is painting with a broad brush. Yeah. If you want to own a tire store, right, and you can turn hundreds of tires a day, that's a different model than what we're discussing. We're not talking about a high volume, just tire store or something like that. That's a very different model. But even then, these same practices work in that tire store the same way they work in a mechanical shop.
Most of the tire guys that I know are probably doing 50% tires, 50% at least. I mean, I know there's some that are 70% tires, 30% service, but I don't know of any tires other than maybe discount tires that are only doing tires and not getting into any of the service at all.
Well, I've talked with Mark Pons a lot, brilliant businessman, right? And one of the things that I always learned from Mark was, hey, watch the way we do tire business. And then we kind of shift gears in the mechanical business. It runs a little bit differently.
It's a different business, right?
And so you've got your tire team that's out here just nailing the tires out, and that's what they do every single day. And I've because of ASTA, I've had some amazing opportunities to work with some of the best tire men in the entire country. Yeah. And I was the guy saying, like, you can't make it with tires. And then I meet Mark Pons and I'm like, whoof, he did more than make it with tires.
Holy smokes, you could make a lot of money with tires.
Yes.
But it's a different margin. It's a different business.
And it's ran differently. Yeah. And so, I found my sweet spot to be 3 cars a day per tech, somewhere between $900 and $1,100 on my ARO. That's my sweet spot. That's where we run. That's where things work. We get too much higher than that, we start getting into very complex jobs. And listen, I talked to a lot of shop owners. I got a $3,000 ARO. That's too high. And they're like, what are you talking about? That's too high.
If you're a diesel shop, it's not. If you're a European shop, you're pushing the edge. But
for sure.
But if you're a general repair shop, it's too high.
Exactly.
Right?
It means you're doing engines and transmissions
you're doing
all day
a lot of heavy duty work. And if you're doing a lot of heavy duty work, the margins and the matrices that you currently would have in place normally that would be taught to you will never work for your business to make the profit you need.
Exactly. Right. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. And I think that's why, it's like when I talk to folks about coaching with the Institute, I'm always saying, listen, there is no cookie cutter model that fits every shop. Like
I think there is, frankly. I mean, if you say I'm a tire store, there's a model that works best. If you say
I don't disagree.
I'm a discount store, there's a model that works best. Yeah. But I have never run a discount store. So I've never done a cheap oil change or anything cheap. Or frankly, when I was running shops, I never was a discounter. So I don't understand that model. And I know some guys, however, that run really discount. I've known some guys in my life and their model works for them. Only their techs are usually pretty transient because they're not paying them enough and they're running too many cars through, and that's their service advisors can be somewhat transient in that business, and their customers can be somewhat transient in that business. So the other part of that is if I'm running a discount model, I have to keep really hounding marketing. Those are the guys that are also saying you need to send out 10,000 to 40,000 mailers every month so you can bring these oil changes in so you can do enough business to be profitable.
Here's my thing though. Okay. When we look at the numbers, right? When we look at the financials, because I talk to Eric Jordan all the time at Kaizen,
Yeah.
and I'm like, dude, you know where I was at. I didn't have clean numbers. I ran through a spell where we didn't have good bookkeeping, and our numbers were a mess.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to run a business without good, clean numbers, right? And so what I'm saying though, Cecil, is that without good, clean numbers, without good, clean data, there is no model that's going to work. And I think that when they have good numbers, that GP number that you have to hit every single month to pay the bill,
Yeah.
what the shop down the street's
Well, they
charging is
they don't
irrelevant to you.
Yeah. They also
What you have to make is what you have to make.
if you don't have clean numbers, you make mistakes and you
Yeah.
make bad decisions. So,
I make bad
imagine
decisions with clean numbers, Cecil.
yeah,
What are you
yeah.
talking
But imagine that we brought a new car in or a
Yeah.
4-year-old whatever, and we didn't have a scanner and we couldn't get the
Yeah.
data out of the car. And so now what are we doing? Now it's the, well, based on my experience, I think, or
Yeah.
my tech is saying let's
Yep.
replace these 6 parts. Maybe that's going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that company. I want to be the company that says, I know exactly what's going on with your business. And
Yeah.
these are the 3 or the 5 things that we can do that will really improve your business and
Yeah.
put more money in your bottom line, create more happier employees, happier clients, etc.
Sure.
We do have a question. Let's get to the
Kyle,
question.
my
I know
buddy
that
Kyle.
this is supposed to be ask me questions. So, and I have kind of read the question, but I'll let you read it. I read it
Yeah.
myself. So
I'm a mobile programming and testing company netting 8% currently. Now, Kyle is a fairly new company. Very proud of him, doing awesome things. My GP's 55% per RO, but my car count is only about 10 per week, so 2 a day. Should my next step be more investment into marketing or jump into coaching to maximize what I currently have? Cecil, what do you think?
well, I would lean on the coaching side, and here's why.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be making net 20 and your gross profit is off by what is that 12 14 points.
Yeah.
I mean, I need 62 to 64% GP.
Yep.
And I need to know where that's missing, right?
For
And
sure.
what I have to do to get that. So you can bring more cars in at this point, and and if you maintain a net 8, you're just gonna, if you want to make the
Higher
kind of
net
money. So
8.
I want to make I don't know, I want to make $200,000 at 8%. $200,000, an awful lot of cars to work on, an awful lot of places to make mistakes, and awful lot of liability. At 20%, $200,000 is a lot less cars. It's a lot less liability and a lot less places to make mistakes. So for me, I might do both. It would depend on, 8%. If you're doing, 10,000 a month, okay, I'm making 8%. That's, in my opinion, that ain't enough to survive. If you're doing 100,000, you might do both. You might, get coaching, improve your margins, figure out where your business is going wrong. And then while you're doing that, you might improve car count and put a few more, butts in seats so that I can make 20% on more people instead of 8%.
So here's my perspective. Okay. So thing number 1 for me here is that you're exactly right. And my reasoning's a little bit different. I would want to fix my net and I would want to fix my gross profit first before I started stacking more clients in the door, because now I'm going to have more attrition because I'm changing my model midstream, as opposed to narrowing down and polishing my model right now and getting my model right before I start presenting it to more people. Right. So, so I can set the expectation early.
Yeah. And if you do that, you'll have happier clients that will continue to use you and come back. And
I agree.
There's a mobile programming guy, so his client is probably not like the end user. He may be working with more shops. I mean, there's definitely more information I'd need in order
for sure.
to tell him.
And he's working with a lot of shops.
Yeah,
and I think he's doing some mobile diag too.
Yeah,
but so here's the next question to that though, right? Okay. Because I think there's a lot of mobile diag guys out there. There's a lot of mobile techs out there. And that does lead us to that next question is, hey, like I'm not, if I do a DVI, how am I going to upsell something? Because I'm really just coming out to do the diag and program the vehicle.
Well, if I'm working with other shops, I'm not doing a DVI. We are just there to fill a place. That's why I never liked being the alignment guy for the 10 shops around me. Because when the car comes in, I see things that
wasted opportunity.
The customer should be talking. We need. I feel like, oh my God, why aren't they telling the customer that you're upper control arm bushings are falling out of the car, and
Yeah.
I can't even align it, right? But I have different roles in different places, and if I am coming out to do programming, and I'm at the end user, the client who owns the car, and I do a DVI, I might have an opportunity to sell additional stuff. But do I have the tools with me? Do I have the parts there? Do I have the equipment? Can I do it wherever I'm at, or do I have a place where I can take it and do it? I mean, there's a lot of additional questions and information, depending on the model that you want to build, right? I don't think you should run 3 different models. I think you need to find the model that's going to work the best for you, and that's the model that you want to run, and you want to run it as well as it can be run.
I don't know anything about the mobile business, and I'm not going to pretend to, but I think if it were me, right, what I would be doing is I'd be working with professional shops. I would say, hey, what I'll do, you guys get the cars you need programmed, lined up. You get everything you need. In other words, do you have multiple cars that are going to need programming? Do you have things? Try and get those all scheduled on a day for me. I'll come out and I'll get the repairs made. If you need me to do repairs, whatever, I'll get diags done, but get me a day's worth of work. Right?
Yeah, because I can't be moving around. I'm losing
Exactly.
time, and time has to be billable no matter what. So either I got to charge if I'm working with 5 shops in a day, and I'm traveling
shop
around,
to shop to shop, I spend as much time and gas money moving.
Yeah, am I charging enough to cover the vehicle, the expenses, the gas, the rent, the utilities, the payment, whatever, or utilities? Holy smokes! In my head, I'm thinking one thing, and what comes out of my mouth is something else. Sometimes
we're used to it, Cecil. It's fine.
Yeah, it's all right. The guy's losing his mind.
He never had one.
I never had one in the first place. But am I charging enough? And by the way, if I'm going to one shop and I'm going to be there all day, that cost can be less for that shop than if I'm going to 5 shops. If I'm going to 5 shops, I have to cover all the traveling time and all the expenses that go with it. I've got to charge more. Otherwise, I only make 8%, or I only make 3%, or whatever. I don't make my 20%, and I need my 20%.
I think, to summarize basically where we've gone with this is like the base numbers, the 55 and the 8% are not fixed by increasing car count. So we fix those numbers first. Yep. And then like we get some of that dialed in, and we get the model dialed in, we get the efficiency dialed in, and then we work on marketing to bring more in if we need it at that point. But that's how I would take it.
So imagine you were, say, building houses and you weren't charging enough, plus you maybe weren't building the house in a correct manner. All right. Yeah. So, and I build more houses, I create more liability. Yeah. That later I may have to go back and fix, repair, whatever. I think you always want to fix the model first. And there is a point, hey, I'm a guy, I want to start a business. I don't know what I don't know. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to work my butt off and all of that. But there's a point in that where you have to say to yourself, I want this to run well. And I want this, and so I need to know what it really takes to run it well, because I don't want to work, 12 hours a day in order to make the money I need to take care of my family, or to, take. So, I mean, and that back to okay. So I hope we answered that well enough, Kyle. And thanks so much. Thank you so much for that question. And back to this yes mentality. I told you I'm of both worlds. So I don't want to tell a customer no matter what. Yeah, I really don't. But sometimes I have to say yes, but right. Yeah, we'd absolutely love to take care of that for you. However, right, this is the situation. I always try to create some empathy around what's going on in my world. And by the way, if I get a guy that comes in who's really pissed off because at 4:00 I can't stop everything and change his oil,
is he somebody I want in my shop?
Yeah, is that the guy I want to work with? Yeah. And the answer is no. For me, the answer is unequivocally no.
So many of these shop owners, okay, and I'm going to be really blunt here, and I'm not talking about the institute.
Blunt? Wait a minute.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm not talking about the institute when I say what I'm going to say, okay?
Okay.
But so many of these shop owners, they go to a class somewhere, and somebody gives them these ideas of what to do. Now, listen, I've been this guy. I've been disconnected from the front counter. I've been disconnected from the base, and I go to a class, and this person recommends, and I'm going to tell you, why do you think coaches have got such a bad name? There is a coach that if you go on TikTok and search his name, it's technicians cussing him. Like every TikTok video is people just cussing this guy out, right? And it's that they have become so disconnected from what it's like to do the job. Now, listen, I think what happens is that owner has been struggling for a long time. I've told you about this in my personal life before, that I spent so many years fighting and just climbing and trying to get things right and dealing with the stress and the upset client and all the things, that the minute somebody was willing to walk in that front door and take that pressure off of me, I'm like, here you go. It's yours. Take it. Do whatever you want with it. I don't care. Right?
Well, would you,
Like,
I mean, if you're going to listen to someone give you advice, right?
Yeah.
You know, am I going to do some research on that person or that company?
Absolutely.
And find out, you know, what their clients are saying, and you know, where did that person get his education? You know, what's their as they said, what are the bona fides, right? You know, in whatever movie, I can't remember the title to, but or are you just one of our events, and again, I'm going to be brutal but not name their name,
right?
You know, last year chose speakers based on the title of their thing.
Yeah.
And they got
never actually inspected the class or anything.
They got a lot of complaints, and I heard a lot of feedback from people saying, wow, in 20 minutes I walked out of that class.
Yeah.
And so do you want to have, I'm not saying we don't want to have new people in the industry, because we do. We want to bring new people in, but do you want to have people that have no bona fides, no qualifications? They're just basically, the thing I hate about the internet is they're able to say, I'm the expert on this. And all of a sudden, everybody believes they're the expert on this.
100%.
Even though they don't have the experience, they don't have the basic knowledge to really be the expert.
Here's my beef, though, right? Is like they can come in and say whatever they want. And it's like a lot of what's being taught in the industry right now has consequences that we're not paying for yet. And I believe there were a lot of things taught over the past however many years that we're paying for the consequences right now, right? Like there's a lot of things that we're paying for that were done years ago, and this is just how the industry works, and now we're paying the price for it. We don't have any techs, and all of these problems and all this stuff's coming up, right? And so when I guess what I was saying about, like, they're teaching these things, but they've never been on that side of the counter. And so it's like the shop owner comes back and says, hey guys, we're going to start doing this. Well, let me ask you, Mr. Shop Owner, how many years has it been since you've sat on that front counter? How many years has it been since you were the one getting the butt chewing because you did something that was shady or was right? Like, have you disconnected yourself from the experience? Have you disconnected yourself from the consumer, the advisor, the technician? Because many of the guys we teach were technicians. They were advisors.
Yeah, but I'm gonna kick you in the teeth here.
Okay, I like it. Do it.
Just because you sat on the front counter doesn't mean that you learned anything.
Of course.
So I think like having a technician who becomes a service advisor, I would rather have a service advisor who was never a technician. And I know a lot of shop owners are going to go, man, you're crazy, Cecil. But there's bad habits that you learn as a tech that are great habits when you're a tech, but when you're a salesperson, service advisors are not good habits, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. One thing is, okay, so you did it for 20 years. So what, right? And I know, that's some of my bona fides. I did this. This is I've run business, been successful, etc. I believe I've learned a lot of things that maybe many shop owners don't really know and understand. Here's the other part of this. There are things that need to be taught to a tech that a service advisor should not be taught. There are things that a service advisor needs to know that a tech shouldn't know. And there are things that a manager needs to know that are different than a service advisor. And there are things that an owner needs to know that are a lot different. And not all of those you will learn by being on the counter or by running the business, right?
For sure.
I've got guys that have been doing this for 30 years. I see them all the time. They come up and they're like, Yeah, I've had a shop for 30 years, and their business is worth $150,000 all in, and they have no money, but they've
Right?
been working at this for 30 years.
We've always done it this way. But
Yeah.
here's my point though, is where I'm going with this a little bit different. Where I'm going with this is it's been so long since you've sat on that front counter and your policies and procedures are causing problems for the front counter that you don't even see.
I cannot use my policies and procedures when I was running a shop 15 years ago for a shop
Yep.
today.
Exactly.
And we don't
Exactly.
teach that. You know,
Yeah.
it might be a good place for you to start because you can see what a policy and procedure should look like.
Yep.
But to take my policy, even the way I scheduled,
Yeah. It's completely
today,
different.
I think it's a bit different, right? It has to be modified. And
But
another thing you want your coach to be is somewhat flexible on certain things, because if they're not, they're going to teach you what they learned 25 years ago, right?
Well, I mean, I guess my point in that though is let's go back to the example given, okay? Of hey, we're going to have this situation where we bring this car in and they've got a coupon, so we just want to get the car in to convert it into a car that we can turn into a higher ARO, right? Now, I've got an advisor who's at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They're trying to make all of their telephone calls. They're trying to update all of their clients. They're trying to get everything
finish the 15 tickets that are going on, so they get the
Exactly.
money in the bank, etc.
Trying to make sure the shop looks good, trying to get everybody wound down. They're in the end of the day. They're phasing it out. They're getting ready to book in the day, plan tomorrow, right?
Right.
And now I've got a technician who's in the middle of a job. He's got an hour left. And I'm going back and I'm saying, hey, I need you to stop what you're doing. I need you to inspect this car. I need you to do an oil change right now. I need you to pull this thing in right now. And plus, you're asking the advisor to go to that client, write an estimate for something simple, something that needs to be dealt with right now. It's a big deal to get the car to stay. And now I'm arranging a ride for this person, right? Now, you want to talk about disgruntled. Think about how that disrupts every single person in the shop's day. I've disrupted a porter. I've disrupted an advisor. I've disrupted a client. I've disrupted a technician.
I've disrupted my profits. I've disrupted my workflow.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the biggest expenses in the automotive industry, the biggest cost, and where we're losing the most money, is that we do not have good workflow.
Yeah.
So the productivity issue. And because of that, we have a lot of techs complaining because they can't get paid if they're on flat rate and we don't have productivity. And it is the fault of the business because of our flow. Then they got a legitimate complaint, right?
Yeah.
And what we're doing, I have a class called Stack the Deck, and what we're doing is stacking the deck against us. We're not stacking it in our favor, right?
Right.
And so we're doing by bringing that car in at the last minute, we're doing everyone a disservice. Everybody.
Yeah.
The client, the car, the service advisor, the tech that's going to have to be pulled off, and we're creating kind of havoc and bad attitude.
Chaos. Yeah.
And if we create, bad attitude and havoc and chaos in our business, then what are our results going to be?
Yeah.
Okay. And you can beat guys only so long. You can be a forceful manager and use the whip or the prod or whatever, only so long when guys say, no more of this. It is not a long-term strategy for running a good business that's going to last long-term and be profitable long-term. It's just not a good strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're exactly right. And I think that's where it comes back to me that if I build a workflow that is prioritizing profit over the car count, right? Because I don't believe in the high car count numbers. Now, let me tell you something. I had an epiphany a few years back because I was in 3 bays. You've seen the shop. I was in 3 bays.
With no ceiling. I mean, 9 feet or 8.5 feet or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
It didn't take that much to fill that shop. And it didn't take that much to pay that shop's bills.
Yeah.
And then you've seen the new shop. And I don't even have to tell you, it takes a lot to pay its bills.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And so I have a whole new appreciation for people who try and drive car count. Like, I get it. I get it.
In the class, I had a guy come up and he's like, hey, I'm just me. And what should I do now? And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't know enough information. Yeah. But second of all, when it's just you in 1 bay, you're going to have the least expenses. You're going to make the most money. It's going to be hard because, you got to be the service advisor. You got to, when you got to answer the phone, you have to
maybe
stop
you
what
can
you're
stack that bank
doing, blah, blah,
account
blah.
full like
But
that.
you can. I also
Yeah.
have to, Kent made a comment that it requires you to hold the stick. Somebody has to hold the stick.
Yeah.
And my answer is, it doesn't require me to hold the stick. It requires the stick to be held and held
Yeah.
by somebody that knows what they're holding and knows what they need to do, right? Flying a plane. I don't want to put my 13-year-old grandson flying a plane. He's no experience. I put the stick in his hand, we're probably in trouble. I want a pilot. I want Dutch at the
Exactly
behind the wheel, right?
Well, it's funny you say that because I was getting ready to bring him up. I was talking to him years ago. I was really frustrated about the way the shop was going. He said, "Son, let me tell you something." He said, "When I worked for the airline," he said, "it does not matter who flies that plane or who does what on that plane." He said, "Because I was left seat captain. That was my job." He said, "I could let anybody I wanted fly the plane. For God's sakes, I could let a passenger fly it."
Yeah, but
I
he's
could give them
responsible ultimately for what happens.
I could
on
give
that
them
plane.
all the authority in the world
Yeah.
to fly the plane, but ultimately it was still
Good
my
luck.
responsibility. And I said, "What does
Right.
that have to do with me?" He said, "You're letting a bunch of bimbos fly your plane."
Yeah, people who don't know.
Oh,
That's like
You know,
going
it's
to
like-
coaching and going to classes with people who have a nice internet presence, who don't really have the experience or the knowledge to really help you out.
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
and I see some of these new coaches come on and they say things, and I'm like, well, that sounds really pretty, but
Yeah.
it's not meaningful or impactful. It just sounds pretty.
Right. Okay, we've got a question here. Steve from Wasp Automotive. My question is, how do you decide when adding capacity, another tech, actually helps profit versus creating more chaos? Been there, done that. It's all in the numbers. It's all in your financials. What do you say, Cecil?
I think you look at your business and you say to yourself, like I've got 3 techs, I have 1 service advisor. My flow is now starting to get affected because 1 service advisor, 3 techs, and 11, 12 cars a day, maybe 15 if you're running a lower ARO model. And that service advisor can't talk to all those people, answer all those phones, deal with everything that's happening and make that happen. So you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to add a 4th tech before you really have your service advisor stuff really set up. So, if I'm adding a 4th tech, I'm certainly probably at that point adding a 2nd service advisor. And if you have your systems and processes down and your shop is efficient, if you have a decent ARO, if you know your inspection process and your sales process is good, then let's add a tech. But if you're adding a tech because you feel like we're stacked too deep and I can't get the work out, then it's not the tech you need, it's the process you need.
So
right?
what I do in my shop, okay, let me give you a rundown of how I do my daily planning, my weekly planning, is I'm monitoring how much work we have in the shop at any given time. So I know how many hours and I know how many dollars I have in the shop. And I'm saying, okay, I know what my typical sales per build hour are. And does that line up with the financial model we've put in place for the shop? And so if I'm consistently at that number, I can take my hours and I can say, my technician should be able to turn 8 hours a day. There's going to be days they're a little bit less. There's going to be days they're a little bit more. But if I have X number of hours and it gives me a runway, because I view this like my runway, right? Like how far can I go? And I run this shop somewhere between 5 and 7 days out is typically where it falls, right? I want to have between new appointments coming in, right? Because I know my average hours per repair order, new appointments coming in versus the work that I have here right now. How much work would that give me? Right. And a lot of guys come back and say, how could you judge what a new appointment is going to be? Because it's my average hours per repair order. That's what we always run. It doesn't go up and down hours. It goes up and down 5, 10, 15 minutes. It goes up, down 0.1, 0.2. It's not a huge swing.
Yeah.
And so now I'm looking at the shop and I'm saying, okay, if that is the case and I have this much work and I'm billing this much, is the work getting done? No, it's not. Okay, well, now I have an efficiency problem in the shop.
Maybe.
Okay, the work. Go ahead.
maybe it's an efficiency problem in the shop. Maybe it's I have too many clients and I need another tech, right?
Well,
So
I guess what I'm saying though is if I'm in that situation, right? So if I've got that number and my number is each tech should be able to do 8 hours a day, and I am not moving that number through the shop, and I go and I look and I find out, hey, I got 4 hours per day per tech. That's an efficiency problem.
and by the way,
Adding
that's
another
it.
tech
Don't
will
hire
not fix
another
that problem
tech. Yeah, because
unless you
now you're gonna have 5 guys doing 3 hours a
turning
day
4
or
hours a
whatever.
day.
So
Right.
yeah, and all the marketing, all the money you spend on that, and everything else
Yeah,
is just gonna go by the wayside.
100%. But
So
I'm going to maximize what I have, I guess is my point. It's ran by the numbers. There's a
I
formula.
think I think if you're smart, you're always maximizing what you have. And so,
Yeah.
you're the question that I ask every day is why not, right?
Yeah.
Why aren't we? Why isn't the institute growing faster? Why are we not signing up more people? Why are we, whatever it is? Because the answer to that question is the answer I need in order to really move
Yeah.
ahead, right?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
so if you're saying, I've got 6 hours of productivity out of my techs, and now I'm going to hire another tech because I have too many cars. Well, maybe your price isn't high enough to, maybe
Yeah.
your price needs to be a little higher. So that's a way that you might manage car count. So we're booked 3 weeks out. Well, book 3 weeks out is not okay. And what often happens is I have customers come in today and they were scheduled for whatever, and then we found $4,000 worth of stuff they need, and they want to buy it,
Get
except
bumped.
I can't do it today.
Yeah.
So they get bumped a week and a half out, 2 weeks out. And then the other problem is if I'm scheduling that way, and I have new people they don't know who I am. So they're
Yeah.
calling for a first time. I need to get those people in either today or tomorrow. I
Yeah. If
cannot
you wanna
schedule
retain
those
that.
people. Yeah, otherwise that money I spent is wasted money.
Yeah.
And so, there's these balancing and tipping points in your business that if you really understand the business and you're watching the numbers, as Ken says, if you know where you're going and you got your hand on the stick and you got the data that you need, then all of a sudden I'm making better decisions. And so I know what to do when I need to do it. And
For
then
sure.
I think
Absolutely.
I think everybody should have mentors or coaches. Mentors. Some of those are paid because that's what you hired them for, and they
Yeah.
might be your coach. And some of those are not. I mean, I'll call you occasionally for something and say, "Hey, Lucas, what do you think about this?" Because
sure.
frankly, I look at you in some areas as that guy where I can call you and get some good information.
Right.
And, and I just think we have so many people in our industry that they just don't know enough about the business and how
Yeah.
the business runs to make the best decisions. And so they keep running into the wall.
They were really good at fixing cars, and they were really good at maybe selling service,
Yeah.
but they weren't good at running the business that fixes cars and sells service.
Well,
And there's a difference.
Yeah. And then, how do I manage these people? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, well, my guys won't do good inspections, or they won't take 20 pictures of the car or whatever. And I'm like, part of me is flabbergasted, right?
Yeah.
Part of me is like, how do you have people that won't do what you need them to do, and you keep writing them a check every week,
Yeah.
right, or every 2 weeks, and then part of me is angry, like,
Yeah.
are you really that dumb that you can't figure this out and manage people and make sure that you're getting what you need out of your staff, and so I'm always two people in my head, I'm just always, but they keep doing the same thing over and over, and they keep thinking they're going to get different results. It's insanity.
Here's what stands out to me, because I've been working at the other end, dealing with much younger employees, right?
Yep.
And I had one a while back come up to me and said, "I really appreciate you holding me accountable." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "Nobody has ever said to me, 'Why didn't you accomplish this thing?'" And they just acted like I was going to be upset or was going to be mad if somebody came and said, "What about?" And they said, "The problem is I never knew if I was winning or losing. And so I need somebody to tell me I'm doing good or I'm not doing good, So I
Yeah.
understand where I need to go, but that's not happening anywhere else I've been.
Well, it
And
doesn't.
see,
In most places, it does not happen, my friend.
yeah,
And so,
exactly.
we don't have goals. I'll go into a shop and say, well, what are your goals for your tags? How do they win? Right? Well, they do a lot of work and they don't have any comebacks. Well, first of all, not having any comebacks is ridiculous because you can't work on cars without having a comeback.
You figure that one
Second
out,
of
buddy.
all, what's a lot? What's a lot of work, right? I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of work is 10 hours a day. I mean,
Yeah.
people need, if you hold people accountable, if they understand, if you're fair, meaning
Yeah.
they know what their target is, they know what they have to do, and then you hold them accountable, they're very happy. They're happier than they can ever be. It's the people that don't have any direction, that don't know if they're winning. Every 2 years, every 3 years, they move to another shop, hoping that they can find that thing that they don't have. And the thing that they don't have is goals, targets, accountability, and winning. I mean, those are the things you absolutely have to be a happy human being, right?
Yeah.
If not, it wears at you and it wears at you until what you do is you go online and you just bitch, right?
Yeah.
And so we got a lot of online complaining going on.
Yeah.
Um,
The quickest way to a depressing life is unmet expectations, and the only
Yeah.
human being capable of setting your expectations is you.
Well, and that's the
Right?
other thing. I think we all, I always say managers need to manage, meaning,
Yeah.
when I was a tech, I kept track of every hour I built. Okay. Now, the reason I was keeping track of every hour I built was not because I thought my company was going to not pay me for it. The reason I kept track of every hour was because every day was a competition against yesterday.
Yeah.
So if I did 7 hours yesterday, today I want to do 8. And I'm competing against myself. And in a way, part of my life has been managing myself, because if somebody
Yeah.
else doesn't create the expectations for me, I create the expectations,
Amen.
because I need the dopamine or whatever that comes from being successful.
Amen, buddy.
If not, at the end of the day, you watch me. I'm sitting watching TV doing this because I
That's it.
wasn't successful today, right? I didn't make anything happen.
Kent says complaining can make the problem feel bigger it is to the point it feels insurmountable.
Yeah, it happens all the time in this industry.
Somebody told me one time that human beings can be in love with their problems. They can make their problems their identity. And so
Well, think about this. As a technician, I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
Right. And problems are brought to me all day long. But all of a sudden, I become a salesperson or I become a manager, creating problems so that I have problems to solve. Right.
Amen.
And, don't get me wrong. As a salesperson, you'll have plenty of problems to solve. As a manager, you'll have plenty of problems to solve. But we have a lot of people in the industry that are creating their own nightmares.
Yes.
And then they're living in them, and then they're complaining about them. And mine is like, okay, fix it.
Exactly.
Right? It might not be easy. It might not be quick, but fix it. Stop doing what you're doing today. Start learning how to do something just a little bit different. And because you keep going the same way, you keep getting the same thing.
That's exactly right. If you continue to do the same thing and expect different results, that is the definition
Insanity.
of insanity.
Yes, sir.
Cecil, thank you for
Yes,
being
sir.
here today.
Well, thank you. I love these things. And
Yes, sir.
Thank you for those of you that participated and asked questions. And we'll be back again soon, I'm sure.
That's it. Well, I guess another month, and we'll be
Another
back
month,
here.
and we'll make her
Another
happen one more
AMA.
time.
Waiting to hear y'all's questions. Cecil, see you next time, buddy.
Love you, brother.
Love you, brother.